To donate or for more information, visit www.imamhusseincharity.com.
Even death was not able to separate Abbas from Hussein, just as the haram of Abbas cannot be separated from the haram of Hussein, in the same way that Safa can never be separated from the mountain of Marwa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the mountain of Safa and Marwa to be from the sha'air Allah. Similarly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the haram of Abbas and the haram of Hussein to be sha'air Allah al-kubra. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala willed that between the haram of Abbas and the haram of Hussein, there is a land of mawaddah, there is a land of azar, there is a land of ishq, there is a land of junoon. This is the land of Bayn al-Haramain. So long as this haram of Abbas and the haram of Hussein remains, people until the day of judgment will beat their faces and chests shouting, Ya Abbas and Ya Hussein. The divine decree of Allah is that from the land of Bayn al-Haramain, every time a tear is shed for Hussein, a tear is shed for Abbas. It is the divine decree that from Bayn al-Haramain, so long as there is a chant Ya Hussein, it will be accompanied with a chant Ya Abbas. The decree of Allah is that Abbas can never be separated from Hussein.
As lovers of the Ahlul Bayt, we all have an inclination to the epitome of love. When we rejoice, when times are hard,
Assalamu alaikum rahmatullah wa barakatuh, and welcome to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. Now, this is a live show. We do take in your questions, so if you have any questions you'd like to ask, please send them in via the WhatsApp number, which will be on the bottom there. You can scan the QR code and inshallah it will take you straight to the WhatsApp page. If you're watching on Facebook Live or you're watching on YouTube, put your questions in the comment section, and inshallah the technical team will be able to send your questions to me via this lovely iPad, inshallah, where we will discuss and answer your question. I'm your host, Mohsin Shah, and joining me is Sheikh Ali Maash. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikhna.
Assalamu alaikum.
How are you doing this evening, Sheikhna?
Alhamdulillah, bikhair.
Fantastic. Sheikhna, what is the role of the infallible Imam when it comes to Sharia legislation?
أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله على محمد وآله الطاهرين ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين. In Kitab al-Kafi we have the hadith of Imam al-Rida alayhi salam, this long hadith in which he mentions many status and positions and greatness of the Imam of Ma'soom alayhi salam. In this part of the hadith he states Salamullahi alayhi, الإمام يحلل حلال الله ويحرم حرام الله. The role of the Imam is to make the halal of Allah halal, permissible to consume or to use. ويحرم حرام الله, and to forbid what Allah forbids. In other words, the Imam alayhi salam, he reveals, he shows to the people that this is haram because Allah said it's haram. It's halal because Allah said it's halal. Somebody asked a couple of days ago that if the Prophet ﷺ completed the religion, then what is the role of the Imams? You know, the ayah says, اليوم أكملت لكم دينكم. Today I have accomplished the religion.
Yes.
So what does it mean? The Imam here is to deliver, to show to the people in his time, because he's hujjah in his time, to show the halal of Allah Azza wa Jal, which is through the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because they gained this knowledge through Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. In the famous hadith which says that Imam Ali says salamullah alayhi that علمنا Rasulullah ألف باب من العلم, that the Holy Prophet taught me 1,000 doors of knowledge. So Ahlul Bayt gained their knowledge in halal and haram via Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, which is Allah's hukum, of course. So when we say that, for example, this specific hukum is halal or haram, is from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from Allah Azza wa Jal. إذن الإمام يحل الحلال الله ويحرم حرام الله ويقيم حدود الله. And of course the Imam, he would establish the boundaries of Allah Azza wa Jal, the hudud. ويذب عن دين الله, and he would defend Allah's religion. That is the Imam's position, and that's what Imam Hussein salamullah alayhi did in Ashura, in Karbala. He defended Allah's religion after the Umayyads and the Yazidis wanted to destroy Islam internally. ويدعو إلى سبيل ربه بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة, and he would call towards Allah's religion in the wise manner and speech, and with strong evidences. والحجة البالغة, and of course to show the guidance towards people, so that on the day of judgment, on the Qiyamah day, there's no excuse that we didn't see, we didn't hear. No, the Imam was within you, you heard his evidence, his hujjaj, his barahin, his facts, what you ignored. So hujjah is always with the humanity, be it the hujjah is visible or not visible, in appearance or in disappearance, like the one we have in this time, Imam al-Mahdi Ajjallah Farajuhu al-Sharif. So the hujjah is there, the hadith are there. It is up to the people to make their decision, to follow Ahlul Bayt or to reject them. Na'udhu billah.
Hassan, Sheikh. Can an individual declare an oath in writing, and would it be valid?
Basically, the oath should be done verbally. The one who wants to do the oath, qasam, wallahi, billahi, tallahi, has to be done verbally and not in writing. It's not accepted. Or somebody who would keep it in his mind or as an intention. You must say this oath verbally. Unless somebody cannot speak, then they can do with the sign, by, let's say, sign language and so forth. Otherwise, if somebody can speak and talk, of course, it has to be done verbally. It's similar to the aqd of nikah contract, where you have to say it verbally. with a talaq, you have to say it verbally. You can't just write it and give it to the groom or to the bride that, you know, I made the contract or the aqd of nikah. No, you have to say it. Zawwajtu, talaqtu, and so forth.
I see. Questions coming in from WhatsApp, Sheikhna. Assalamu alaikum. Was the Holy Prophet and the Holy Family follow the tradition of circumcision? Did the Holy Prophet or Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam and Ahlul Bayt follow the sunnah of, you could say, of Rasulullah and of Nabi Ibrahim of circumcision?
I think we answered this last week. That I said that Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, including Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they are born pure and tahir.
Fair enough.
Yes.
From WhatsApp as well, Assalamu alaikum. Is it allowed to use skincare products containing ethically obtained snail mucus, snail secretion?
You have to make sure it's not najis in overall, impure. That's very important, that it's not impure and it doesn't harm, let's say, the skin. There's no darar, for example. Other things, that it shouldn't cause a barrier between the wudu or the ghusl when it's applied, for example.
Excellent. We have raised funds from the faithful in order to buy Husainiya, and on this basis many of the faithful donated to this cause, but after a period of time some of the members had different thoughts and some suggested to use the funds to buy a cultural centre instead. Is this permissible?
Well, the one should go back to those who donated for this cause, for this Husainiya to be established, the donors, in other words, to go and ask their permission with this regard, because they made this intention that you're buying Imam Barga or Husainiya and not an Islamic center or cultural center and so forth. Otherwise, if one cannot get their consent and they need to turn this place into something else, community center, for example, one should go back to the Ahkam SOS, which is the marja, and ask his permission, because the marja has some kind of wilaya. You know, the faqih has a wilaya in these aspects.
I see. Can we prostrate on loose soil or mattress or pillow while praying?
Making sujood or prostrating on pillows or as you mentioned, loose soil or mattress, because the head would not be stable on those substances or surfaces. Basically, let's say on the mattress, the head will be bouncing up and down as a result. One of the conditions of the salah, of sujood, that you have to be stable. When you do the sujood, it has to be on a hard surface where you don't actually bouncing inside, let's say, the mattress or pillow and such like. It has to be stable.
I see. Questions coming in from WhatsApp, Sheikhna. Assalamu alaikum. What is the ruling on saying Assalamu alaikum to the disbelievers?
What some ulama would mention, that it's better to greet them with their own, let's say, own greetings. Otherwise, you can say alaikum, because the salam alaikum is specifically for the mu'mineen and believing individuals. As mentioned in the Holy Quran, they say to Ahl al-Jannah, those entering paradise, salamun alaikum tibtum. You know, it's mentioned in the Holy Quran. This, you know, salamun alaikum. So it's for those who enter paradise, for the mu'mineen. But in overall, it's good to say greetings in overall, you know, with the non-Muslims, to basically to show a good
quick gesture. History lesson is in India, they use the word adab, which was for that purpose, because non-Muslims would come and say Assalamu alaikum and try to shake hands as well, and back then the Muslims refrained from replying. Wouldn't say salam to them, I wouldn't shake hands, so they'd always do this and say adab, and it's very popular. It's still done today. You know, non-Muslims would see Muslims and say adab. Another question from WhatsApp, Sheikhna. Has istikhara any basis in the Sharia? Is there a problem in repeating the istikhara with the same intention by paying sadaqah before it in order to get a guidance that is to one's liking? Sheikhna, first of all, if someone is leaning towards one decision already, is there any point in taking the istikhara? Why not just do what you want to do? Secondly, keep doing the istikhara again and again because you want a different alternative. Is that allowed?
Initially, there are hadiths with this regard, narrations, that istikhara exists in the narrations of Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam. So it's mentioned, and the way, and different ways they mention in which you can do so by yourself, even pray 2 rak'ah salah, say astaghfirullah, for example, 7 times or 10 times. It's mentioned in the hadith in detail. So, and then you have the istikhara of the Quran, for example, of tasbih, and so forth. The istikhara comes when one is undecided, in a situation of hesitation, indecision, 50-50. In the situation, you do istikhara. But if you have like certainty, or 70-80% of something you want to do, and you want to do it, then tawakkal ala Allah, give sadaqah and do it without istikhara. Istikhara there is just to, ask Allah's guidance, in the Holy Quran, for example, or the prayers and so forth.
Is it permissible to use a remote control device to stimulate your spouse when they are physically away from each other? Can we use toys to help pleasure one another, especially if, let's say, the spouse is gone and I'm by myself at home and so forth?
No, the only tools you can use is the both sides' body or hands or whatever is related to the own pleasure. You can't insert an outside object in pleasuring oneself and arousing the shahwa of one. You have to use both bodies or hands and so forth.
From WhatsApp, is it allowed to sell revealing clothes such as tank tops or skirts for women in my business?
To sell them, that's fine, but to show women almost 70% naked, that's ishkal.
I see.
That's the problem.
From WhatsApp, if I'm asked from the girl's family about my knowledge of some who is proposing to their daughter, and if I know bad information about this man, and I give the information to the family of the girl, would this count as ghiba?
Ulama would consider some of these issues not ghiba, because you're actually protecting the family from this individual. There are exceptions with regard that you have to talk and reveal the truth to the other side.
I heard it's the same with if you're going to do business with someone, that if someone goes to get a reference, you should give a true reference. If they are to either give their daughter in hand in marriage or son in hand in marriage, or you're going to do business with them. Is that true?
Also mentioned about if somebody is in dispute with other person, let's say husband and wife, so you would you would actually tell the opposite story. So if she says I hate him, you would go to the husband and say she loves you. That's what she said. So there are exceptions to bring back those two individuals to their life.
Well, from WhatsApp, can we pray behind someone who I know is adil, but he follows a marja whose aqaid is not good and is rejected by other maraja?
What is important that this individual is a righteous person, mu'min, muttaqi, and he doesn't basically causes any enmity against other maraj. He doesn't actually leads a campaign against the ulama, the mu'mineen. He's a righteous mu'min, adil, should be fine.
So aqaid doesn't really play an issue into it. It's just
his aqaid is important to be on the right path here, of course.
I see, fair enough.
You don't pray behind a munharif, a deviant.
So it's just as important. From WhatsApp, are all the siblings of the imams also automatically considered to be from the ma'sumin due to their father being an imam?
There's a big debate and argument about the sons of the ma'sumin alayhim salam. Some would consider that they're all mu'mineen, respected. They have high ranks in some cases, some of them. But some would argue no. There are hadith which says some of them went against the Imam alayhi salam, for example. So there are arguments with this regard.
Fair enough. Okay. A student resides in a place and attends daily classes in another place that is distant from his residence. By the prescribed distance, what is the ruling concerning his salah and fasting?
This individual now, he has a place to study or to work, let's say, and to travel the Shari'i distance. Because that place that he travels to is a fixed place for his work or study, and he goes daily or at least, let's say, 3 days a week. In this case, he must complete the salah in full, pray in full, and fast as well. So he's not actually in safar, in trouble. He's actually working there or studying there, although he doesn't reside and stay there overnight. but because his the type of his work or his studies is to be there and to travel every day, then he needs to pray in full and fast as well.
What happens, Sheikh, now if let's say he's on a 10-day holiday, okay, from work or from studies? He goes home, he's at home now. He's forgotten something, so he's like, oh, I need to go back, I need to pick up some of my things, and I have to hand in a document. So he goes back to that place for 3 hours just to hand in some documentation and take some things. And he's going back home now. There, does he pray this qasr prayer? Does he have to break the fast? Or does he pray the prayer in full?
Yeah, according to a scenario, basically he now left the work or study. Let's say there's a Christmas holidays, for example, or summer holidays, and he just want to go there for a few hours to pick something, to visit someone, or even as a holiday with his family for 1 day holiday, for example. In this case, this is not going to be a work-based trip or a study trip where he needs to complete his salah and fast. In this case, he has to shorten his salah and not to fast.
I see.
And the intention is now changed.
Oh, son. Sheikh, we're going to go to a short break. Join us after the break as we continue our discussion here on Ahkam SOS.
I have a question regarding keeping pictures of
Is it
scholars
permissible
at
to
home.
plant trees by or
Was
over
Islam
the
established
graves?
based on peace and
Is it permissible
non-violence?
to collect donations for charity projects from
Is it permitted to consume canned food imported from non-Muslim
Is there
countries?
an issue for men looking at non-Muslim women?
To have your questions answered live, call in on +44 2035 150199 or WhatsApp us on +44 7415 092155. Alternatively, you can also email us on ahkamsos@imamhussein.tv.
And we're back. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh. Welcome back to Ahkam SOS, the show that discusses Islamic duties and practices. Now we do take in your questions. If you have any questions on any topic whatsoever in Islamic fiqh, please send them in via the WhatsApp question. We've got a QR code. We should have a phone number at the bottom. You can call into the studio 0203 515 0199 or call via the WhatsApp number if you are not in the UK. If you're watching on Facebook Live or you're watching on YouTube, send in your questions via the comment section, and inshallah the technical team will send them to me on my iPad, and those questions will get discussed and answered by Sheikh Ali Maash. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Assalamu alaikum.
Sheikhna, how do we form the niyyah in salah?
The salah is ibadah, a type of worship, and this requires a specific niyyah and intention, and this intention should be towards seeking nearness to Allah Azza wa Jal. So when you want to start this specific ibadah, let's say salah, you have to stand before the qibla and say, you don't have to say even, just to keep it in your mind as an intention that I pray to seek nearness towards Allah Azza wa Jal. وصلي قربة إلى الله تعالى. It's not wajib to utter or say it. You can just keep it in your mind that you're actually praying. The same applies to fasting. أصوم قربة الله تعالى. The same applies to ahkam of the Hajj, for example, and other ibadat, where you have to keep this in mind that you are actually going to do a ibadah act and not, for example, an exercise, up and down, for example, or for example, you're on a diet. You're not going to eat from dawn till dusk, for example. No, you have to make the intention that this is the fast in which Allah wants from me to provide and offer.
I see. More questions coming in. From WhatsApp, I pray at work, so I wanted to know how can I speed up my salah? Like what mustahabat can I cut short or skip?
Mainly you have to do the wajibat. For example, you have the Hamd and Surah, very short surah. Maybe the shortest one is Surah Al-Kawthar. It suffices to say Subhana Rabbil Azim wa bihamdih in the ruku', Subhana wa bihamdih in sujood.
You don't need to say behold Sami Allahu liman hamida in between sujood.
These are all mustahabbat.
That's mustahab.
Even for the qunut, mustahab, you can just say Allahumma salli ala Muhammad and proceed with the salah.
Even in between the sujood, astaghfirullah rabbi wa atubu ilayh.
Just say Allahu Akbar and Allahu Akbar again, and go to the second sujood.
That could help speed up. From WhatsApp, I understand that it is recommended to wear perfume, But what about the perfume on days of martyrdom of the Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam, or while going to the majlis?
In overall, perfume is what is recommended in the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. He used to put lots of perfume when he used to go out, although he was himself, mashallah, the Prophet had a great scent.
Yeah, he smelled like heaven.
But anyhow, for the Ma'sumin alayhim salam, we have to see, if it's the day of Shahada or night of Shahada. For example, the Ashura is mentioned that not to put, for example, in overall, to look sad, to look that in a grievance situation, not to eat much food, for example, maybe eat after Dhuhr, Asr, for example, Adhan, something like dates and some water. Yes, for the Ashura, yes, we can. But for the other Ma'sumin, Salamullah, we have to see. That is mentioned also as well.
From YouTube, Shaykhna. Assalamu alaikum to you and the respective scholar. Alaikum salam. It's always nice when people say salam to us. How many times is it allowed to say dhikr in sujood and ruku? Jazakallah khairun.
The dhikr you can mention if it's like, let's say in ruku' subhana rabbil azim bihamdih, you said with odd numbers, 3 times, 5 times, 7 times. The same with sujood, subhana rabbil azim bihamdih, again 3 times, 5 times, 7 times. And this is how you can prolong your sujood and ruku' if you like to have longer ruku' and sujood.
My husband does the prayer but delays his prayer for insignificant things like watching TV, and he does not like me reminding him, saying that he would pray even if I don't ask him. What can I do to convince him about doing prayers without delay?
Maybe you can show him some of the hadith from Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam for praying on time, and how it is rewardable and rewarding for the one to pray on time compared to the one who prays very late. And sometimes you might find some hadith, for example, it's to do with rizq, for example. You want more money, rizq, then pray on time. That could be one of the reasons one should find out. So these kind of encouragements that you want rizq, you want money, you want, for example, Allah's pleasure and acceptance, and pray on time.
As a girl, can I become a civil servant or a bureaucrat while maintaining proper hijab?
If there's no haram involved in this position from all aspects, there's no haram dealings, or in anyhow, if this work, the typical of the work is all halal, should be fine. Especially if one, like the sister, wants to preserve her hijab, there should be no issue with it.
Nice question there. Can you please suggest me a book that will help me control my carnal desires?
The book of Jam' al-Sa'adat, Akhlaqi book by Naraqi, a great book for controlling one's desires. Very important to read this.
It's in English or it's Arabic?
It's in Arabic, maybe in Farsi as well, but in English I haven't seen any.
Yeah, not yet.
But I mean, lots of akhlaqi books you can find in this regard as well.
Assalamu alaikum. Can you pray obligatory salah while walking or in the washroom? These are the wajib salah.
The wajib salah must be prayed, as I've said, with the conditions of these salah, is to be towards the qibla, to be stable, in a pure tahir surface, for example. The muhr should be tahir, for example. All these conditions of the salah should be met. For the mustahab salah, nafila, there are, of course, exceptions, or more flexible can be applied to the salat mustahab, where you can walk and pray, you can sit and pray, and so forth. But for the wajib, you have to make sure you pray according to the conditions of the salah, as mentioned.
Assalamu alaikum. You mentioned that perfume is recommended. Is it the same for females, or should females avoid wearing perfume or heavy perfume in order to not attract men?
Yeah, as mentioned, not to attract men. Some would say that not to attract, that's the intention. They shouldn't come out in public to attract the men with a strong perfume.
Can women ride bicycles?
Again, the issue of hijab and appearance and the way they would use the bike in the streets, they have to see if that would attract in somehow, because the body, most of the body would moving, you know, in terms of cycling. So they have to see, you know, when they wear the proper hijab and let's say the abaya, are they safe when they drive? Because safety issue is another issue. You know, the safety is another issue. Can they wear abaya and use the bike, for example?
Yeah, true. Is it allowed for the wife's parents to ask for divorce without any Islamic reason? What can I do to convince them otherwise?
No, the divorce and the marriage is in the hands of the
husband.
Of the husband.
Not even the husband's parents. No?
Even the wife, in some cases, she can ask for the divorce in some exceptions. No, it's in their hands.
I see. I receive gifts, mostly edible, such as chocolates, from my aunt who does not pay khums. Will it have an effect on my inner soul directly or indirectly if I eat them?
What some suggested that if one receives such, let's say, gifts, or he would go and eat in such places that they don't pay khums, they're sure about it. Then they can take out, let's say, 1/5 of that value of that food that they ate and put aside as a khums. That should be suffice, basically.
Inshallah. I am earning and I am saving portion of my salary to be able to buy a house in the next 3-4 years and another portion to perform Hajj. Do I have to pay khums on the whole saved amount?
Initially, you have to have your annual khums day, so a specific day in the year where you have to do the calculations and then take out khums for any surplus or excess or extra money, cash in hand or in the savings, which are unspent. You haven't spent it during the year. So yes, you have to calculate how much of this money is unspent, you know, in the savings. You have to pay khums, especially for the Hajj, that you have to make sure that the money is purified, you know, in other words, for the Hajj by paying the khums.
Why is it obligatory to pay a portion of khums compulsory to Sayyid families only and not others? Does the differentiation not encourage a caste system in the religion of Islam?
Basically, we have, you know, we have in Islam overall the hukum of paying the wajib sadaqah haram to the Sayyids. So, as a alternative, the khums was made for them, a portion of that khums to pay to the Sayyids, and because of their attachment to Rasulullah Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alayhi, as a respect, as a sign of gratitude, and you know, this great Prophet sallallahu alayhi wa and his pure family. So they will only get the portion of the khums and not the sadaqat.
Is it permissible to become a foster parent in a Western country? If so, why does it work Islamically when most children are not raised Muslim?
You can actually take somebody as a foster and raise them, and of course they will be Muslims as a result, because they're gonna learn from you the correct aqidah and belief, and they're gonna be, of course, a believing individual. That's a great credit, of course, by itself. There's no issue with it. It's just the issue is about that he's not or she's not halal. If it's a boy, not if they reach the age of puberty and adolescence, they're not halal on your wife.
Yes.
Or if it's the girl, she's not going to be halal on yourself. So that's the issue.
I have missed several fasts due to a period, and I am also traveling today. Can I make up qada fast as I cannot afford to feed 60 poor people?
The qada of the fast should be done as a result after the holy month of Ramadan. So what is the issue if they can do the fast qada and after the month of Ramadan, especially in the winter time when they have enough?
I think this person doesn't understand that with the qada fast, if it's done for, you know, the menstrual cycle or being unwell or traveling, it's just one day you have to pay back as a qada. They're assuming they have to feed 60 people. They're thinking there's a kafara for it, when in reality there's no kafara.
No, they haven't actually broke the fast intentionally. in the month Ramadan, so they have to pay, let's say, 60 and so forth.
Is it better to prioritize qada prayers and perform them instead of other mustahab acts?
Of course, if one can actually hasten in terms of fulfilling their qada, not only prayers but even fasts, to pray as much as they can. But that doesn't mean to neglect and ignore mustahab salah like salatul layl, namaz shab, for example. You shouldn't ignore it. Because you have, mashallah, 24 hours in a day. You can easily divide all these times in terms of your wajib salah on time, your qada, your family gatherings, for example, salatul rahim. Lots of a'mal are in between in terms of mustahabbat. Yeah, so one should basically do a schedule with this regard.
Assalamu alaikum, brother and Sheikh. Alaikum salam. How does one achieve that level of sabiqun, the status that Abu Fadl Abbas Islam reached amongst the eye of Allah?
Of course, one cannot reach this great stage in which Al-Abbas Salamullahi alayhi has reached, in a narration that the shuhada on the Day of Judgment, they would be looking at Al-Abbas alayhi salam, as a high status shaheed compared to them in terms of reaching that great status. Of course, one can work on themselves in a jihad al-nafs, to struggle by their inner self, to avoid the muharramat, the evil acts, the haram acts, and to perform the wajib and obligatory acts. That's important. So basically, one can actually observe taqwa, in other words, to have taqwa, ittaqullah, as mentioned in the Holy Quran many times and in narrations as well, to be able to observe taqwa and God-fearing. This is how one can reach and shorten the gaps between us and Ahlul Bayt alayhim salam, and to get closer to Allah Azza wa Jalla as well, as a result of taqwa. And of course, the next stage is the wara' and maharimillah, is to have that God-fearing of avoiding the acts of sin as much as one can.
Assalamu alaikum, Shaykhna. All power is with Allah, so why do we call some of our Imams Babul Hawa'ij?
Allah Azza wa Jalla in the Holy Quran mentions وَابْتَغُوا إِلَيْهِ الْوَسِيلَةِ. Allah Azza wa Jalla wants us to come to Him through this wasila and the means, and seek nearness by using the means towards Allah Azza wa Jalla. So they are abwab towards Allah Azza wa Jalla because Allah wanted us to go through them. I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago, that similarly when Allah Azza wa Jalla asked the malaika and the angels to prostrate towards Adam alayhi salam, and this is something, if you think about it, it's not going to work. How could a human being becomes a position to be prostrated towards? But Allah has hikmah. Allah wants us to worship Him in the way He wants, and that's why Shaitan became arrogant. That's why he complained that how could I prostrate towards Adam when he is made from clay and mud, and I'm made from fire? So the fire is better than clay and mud, and that's why he became arrogant. The same applies today with many of those who are against the fact of of shafa'ah, for example, of tawassul and so forth, because they don't understand this issue that Allah wants us in this way to get near to Him, because they are the purest, the best. So we ask Allah Azza wa Jal as sinful individuals, through them who are the purest and sinless, to, let's say, forgive our sins and so forth.
Final question for this evening, Shaykhna, that is, if one has a choice to study at Hawza or to learn essential knowledge or to save money for marriage, and it has become obligatory to marry due to fear of falling into sin, what should he choose?
The ulama mentioned that if somebody is in a severe situation in which he would commit na'udhu billah sins as a result of not marrying, of course marriage would be prioritized. Of course, one should go and get married and protect himself from to fall into the haram act. And then afterwards, of course, Allah would inshallah give him the tawfiq and opportunity to study Hawza, to do other mustahab
Well, the other
acts.
thing is, Shaykhna, I mean, Hawza has always benefited people, it's never not benefited. And in Hawza, I do remember very clearly that they do actually help you to get married if you'd like to get married, and they try and help you get married to female Hausa students. So there's, you two can study together, and and together you can, work and become really good students and so forth. And in Hausa, you get free accommodation, you get 3 meals a day. Sometimes they even give you some money to buy books and so forth. So going to Hausa can technically solve all 3 of the problems of finance, of getting married and so forth. Would you agree?
I understand the situation, but this is an exception. If this individual feels that he's going to fall into the haram, let's say na'udhu billah, pornography or masturbation, of course, in this situation one should initially get married, and then of course move towards any other ventures and let's say study or work and so forth.
I see. Thank you very much, Sheikh. Thank you to all of you for joining us on this episode of Ahkam SOS. Myself and the Sheikh will be back on Wednesday here on Imam Hussein TV 3 at 7 o'clock. If you have a question you'd like to send in, please send it in via the WhatsApp. If you're watching on Facebook Live or you're watching on YouTube, put it in the comment section. And inshallah, myself and the Sheikh will be able to discuss and answer your questions. If you have a question in regards to a certain marja, as you can see over my shoulder, we have contacts with the official representatives and the official offices of all our maraja, whether they're in Najaf, in Karbala, in Qom, or wherever they are. So if you'd like an opinion of a certain marja, please put the name of the marja down, and inshallah we will get in contact and we will get you your answers. Myself and the Sheikh will be back on Wednesday 7 o'clock here on Imam Hussein TV 3, Sky Channel 789. See you then. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah wa barakatuh.
As lovers of the Ahlul Bayt, we all have an inclination to the epitome of love. When we rejoice, when times are hard, whatever stage of life we are in, we all yearn to be in one special place. We all wish to visit the blessed shrine of Imam Hussein in the holy city of Karbala. Not all of us have the blessing to visit the shrine of Imam Hussein, but there is still a way to experience the sights and sound of the blessed land of Karbala in the comfort of your own homes.
We call upon you, dear viewers, to support us in our financial costs to help bring the Holy Land of Karbala beaming into your homes. You can support us with a monthly donation of just $50 or £30. We are your gateway to Karbala. Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Imam Hussein TV 3.
أنا لا راتب ولا عندي معين ولا عندي ولد كبير، ما عندي أحد اللي يعيني، وعلى الله وعلى أخوتي. عيشتي حيل صعب، جهالي يردون مثل عندهم مدارس، يردون مصارف، يردون من لبس، يردون شيء. أنا هذا كله ما عندي يعني ما أقدر أصرف. أنا هذا الشيء كله ما أقدر أصرفه، ومنين أجيب أنا؟ يعني أنا راتبي لحد الآن ما طلع، جاي أركض بالراتب، راتب ماكو. أنا لا أطلع ولا أمشي ولا أعرف أحد، وأنا